I'm Maria Shumkelin, the Vice Chair of Pennsylvania Film Industry Association, and I'm delighted to introduce our new guest, Deran Sarafian, who is so versatile and has done so much in both TV and film. And you, if I'm not mistaken, co-executive produced 40 episodes and directed 23, right, of House?
Right. Yes. I did 23 of the first 100 episodes. So we kind of got working with some terrific writers, David Shore, Larry Kaplow, and I got along very well with Hugh Laurie. And Hugh Laurie and I were connected immediately because I wanted to mine his sense of humor and put it into the show, which is it's a procedural, but we called it an anti-procedural because we really, as good as Grey's Anatomy is and as popular as it was, we didn't want to mimic them at all. So what we did is we sort of took our own route, and with the support of David Shore and the other writers, we started to shape the show in a different way when when it was first airing, and we got to mine, like I said, Hugh Laurie's phenomenal, brilliant sense of humor.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and you won quite a number of awards for that show.
I did at the time, and yes, they were. The show was a hit, became a hit. I watched the ratings go up and up until it was #1 on television, and for a network show, there's a lot of competition. Obviously, there's tons of competition now with all the streaming channels. But yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, besides House, you also worked on some of the most famous shows like Hemlock Grove and The Strain, and I can continue naming them. There's so many that I watched and loved. So I'm really honored that you joined us today to share your guidance and the wealth of knowledge. So thank you for being there. And of course, the first question is, how did you get started in the film industry?
Well, I was lucky enough to grow up in a film family. My father, Richard Sarafian, was prolific in television and film. He directed the iconic Vanishing Point, which was become a cult classic and terrific. And although my father didn't like having us on the sets, there's 5 of us. I'm the oldest of 5 children. We run around, we get in the shots, and stealing from craft service. We were just little rascals, and so we didn't get to visit too many. And then my uncle, of course, my mother's brother, so it's a blood uncle, was Robert Altman.
Yeah.
Wow. So I did grow up around it. But I did start, I had the wealth of being on the outside looking in, and on the other side of, the friendships and phone calls. But I love movies growing up. And my mother, a brilliant writer in her own right, worked with my uncle as a writer and my father. And my mother inspired me, all of us, to be creative. So I got my start working for Roger Corman. My first movie I ever worked on was a production assistant on Rock and Roll High School, which became a cult classic. And then I worked in production as a PA on a couple of things, and I found myself with a lot of competition around me, a lot of young directors. I mean, there was, James Cameron, who was working with us, and he got his big break to direct Piranha 2 and go off to Italy. And he got there, and unfortunately, the producer fired him halfway through when he was directing. Well, while he was there, he wrote Terminator. And in the meantime, I'm working on a film with Nick Castle, who actually is a director, but played the Shape in Halloween. He was the masked guy in Halloween. He became a director. So he was directing his first movie. And Linda Hamilton, who eventually starred in Terminator, was the star. So it was a very sort of tight-knit community. We all knew each other. They all go to the comedy store, and I don't think I ever saw James Cameron go there, but a lot of us, aspiring directors and writers, producers. Gail Ann Hurd was also there. So when he went there, I thought, and I had heard that Fellini hung out in Cinecittà, Cinema City is the translation, the studios in Rome. He goes, Fellini is always in there, and he's in there with Roman Polanski. And I go, I thought he couldn't leave France. And he goes, no, he's in there. So I made some money. I was painting address numbers and curbs in Beverly Hills. I lived in Westlake Village to earn money to fly out there. So I got some money, and I made quite a bit of money doing that, believe it or not. And flew on my own, got a cheap ticket to go to Rome. I went there, and I met Fellini. and I had the opportunity to work on one of his last movies called Ginger and Fred as a PA, and got to meet Dario Argento and amongst others. And this was sort of this American guy looking for jobs and trying to do whatever he could. Then this producer, I had met this producer who said, because I'd done a little second unit here and there, I was directing I was very ambitious, right? Yeah. And this is the abridged version, okay? Because there's a lot more, involved, because I was there for almost 5 years in Rome. So he goes, do you have any movie ideas? He saw my energy and saw that I was really, hungry. And I said, I do. I have the script. I have a script. And he goes, tell me about it. So I told him about it. And he goes, I want to read it. And I go, well, I'm still doing some touches on it. It'll be done Monday. Well, I hadn't written a word, not one word. So I sat down with my girlfriend and banged out a script in basically 3.5 days. 3.5 days, a full script, a horror film. And he read it. He goes, I love it. I want to make it, in his accent. I love it. I want to. He's Israeli. I've got to make this movie. I have to make it. Can you cast it? Well, at the time, I knew some people and some actors, and I cast it. Lynn Holly Johnson and Dennis Christopher, who was in Breaking Away, Martin Hewitt, who was in Endless Love. Lynn Holly Johnson was the star of Ice Castle. So I had a pretty nice cast at the time. And I go, all right, we're going to film it. He goes, I have a deal in Spain. You're going to film it in Spain. There's no low budget. I didn't know what the budget was, so they wouldn't show us, but I'm sure it was well under $100,000. Of course, for no money. Everybody's bunking together to make this movie. We made this movie, and it actually got released in the theaters. It was called, at the time, it was called The Falling. It got changed to Alien Predators, because he goes, well, Alien made a lot of money, and Predators made a lot of money. Let's call it Alien Predators. And I made that movie, and then he gave me another one I directed in Rome, another one called Interzone, another sort of it was a parody on Mad Max. So I did that and hung out there. And that one took me a while because money had fallen out, gotten back. So I started living in Rome. And then I got a call from a producer to do a movie called To Die For in the States. It was a vampire love story. So I went to the States and I directed that, and that got me a lot of attention because it got a lot of interest. It screened for some of the agents and everything, and they liked it. And that movie got me my big break, which was David Ladd, who was working for MGM at the time, saw my film and looked at my work. I give a lot of credit actually to his wife, Day Ladd, and she's Day Young now, is her name because they're no longer together. She said, hire that guy to direct. And she happened to be on that first movie I was a PA on, Rock and Roll High School. And I'll never forget, I was a PA and I went to go get her out of her trailer, and I knocked on her door. Miss Ladd, they're ready for you. And she opened the door and slammed in my face and said, fuck off. Right now, she, I guess, felt bad for that. I told her I was that guy. She goes, oh my God, I was wondering who that was. So she fought for me, and I ended up directing this movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme called Death Warrant. We made it for very little money, and I don't even know what the budget was. But opening weekend, we did with only 800 theaters, and by the way, ticket prices were a lot lower back then. We did close to $7 million in box office that opening weekend, and I was on my way. And so then I got another film that I had met Larry Gordon, who did Die Hard amongst other movies. And he goes, I have these rubles to go make a movie in Russia, but it's communist still, by the way. I go, it is? And he goes, yes, it's 1989. And I want you to go direct this movie. And he gave me the script. I liked it. And I needed a bad guy. So I called up Roman Polanski, who I had met in Rome. I go, would you play the bad guy in my movie? And he goes, tell me the story. I'll send you the script. He goes, no. Tell me. I want you to tell me the movie. I told him the movie. He goes, okay, I'm available, and I wanted to do it. And everybody was shocked. So I got Roman Polanski playing my bad guy, who I'd met in Shinichita. I go to Russia, Frank Whaley, Natalia Nagoda, and it's a great little movie. I think I'm going to have a screening of it at the DGA if I can get I can get it from Fox. It was a Fox movie, and I directed this movie in communist Russia, and right before the wall came down. It was a very sort of precarious place to work because there was a lot of nationals that wanted to keep it, communists and a lot that didn't. So it was a volatile place at the time during Perestroika. And that movie just kept on going. And I did a movie after that called Gunman with Christopher Lambert. I did a movie with Josh Brolin after that called The Road Killers. And then I got Terminal Velocity, which is a huge movie for me. It was probably upwards of $50 million budget, produced by Robert Court, who I'm actually going to do a movie for soon. We're reunited. And I did that. And then after I finished that movie, I spent 2 years trying to get a movie for Warner Brothers off the ground, casting it Flying Tigers with Morgan Creek and Warner Brothers. But the presidents changed at the studio and all that, and suddenly they canceled it. I was very frustrated with that. Took some time off, and then I decided I'm going to get into TV because I saw where TV was starting to go. And next thing you know, Buffy and some other things, and I found a life in television, which I really, really flourished in because of the speed and you get the project, you make it, because I love working. And I started working, and then next thing you know, I get CSI Miami, and that led to CSI becoming doing the first episode of CSI New York and becoming the producing director, not executive producer back then. I think it was a producer credit, I'm not sure. But I ran that show and did all the CSI Miami, CSI New York was really proud of, with Gary Sinise, who was just a love to work with. And then next thing you know, it's Lost. And then I got on the House, and I found a home.
Yeah.
Found a home there. And then the resume speaks for itself. It's everywhere. I mean, it's scary stuff. It's thrilling. It's dark film noir stuff. It's very networky stuff. I just finished FBI Most Wanted. That was on a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. But now what I'm trying to do now is I've been writing. COVID, I figured I can't sit around because I waited for a while before I got that FBI Most Wanted, which was another great experience, getting back in after a while. I really was just so raring to be creative and really make it, great. And it turned out wonderful. I was really proud of it. But I've been writing, and I've written a couple of scripts with a writing partner, Emma Rose Carson, who's never had anything made, but discovered her writing after reading some of her material and partnered up with her. We've been writing. And then I have 3 movie projects. I'm doing one about Teddy Roosevelt, younger years, when it's a Western, when he was a Rough Rider, and developed that script, and a writer Mike McGrail wrote it, who also worked for CSI Miami, amazing writer. And so working with him on that, and now we're casting that. And Robert Court, who hired me to do Terminal Velocity, came at me with this movie called Century. We were casting that one. And I have another movie called Trigger Happy. So I haven't done a movie since Terminal Velocity, and that's 20 some odd years ago. It's been a while. Wow. Just been doing movies of the week, running shows like Hemlock Grove. And I've got a wealth of experience now, and we're going to bring it to features. And I'm really concentrating on my feature career right now. And like a lot of us directors, like David Protarka really wants to, get into film again. He's really, really working on that. And I'm in the same boat right now. I'm like, I want to make movies again. And so now COVID is, has really changed my career direction in a movie direction right now that I'm really pushing for. Although television is coming back again with COVID. I mean, we had to double up on masks. It was pretty hard working a steam mask, looking at a monitor, directing a TV show. It's hard for everybody. I'm on a director's chain, and we sort of exchange stories, and the difficulty of working under those circumstances, keeping 6 feet away. And NBC is so, they really want to play the game right. They don't want to be shut down, and also they want people to get sick and die.
Yeah.
That's a really abridged version of everything that I'm up to. But that right now, and I'm starting to write a new project, and I'm very excited about. And I have tried not to, I've tried to keep busy. I have 2 children.
Yeah.
teenage children, and they're, you know, lovely and great kids, luckily, great people. And, you know, and they are obviously a priority in my life. So I'm keeping the balance. And I think I'm doing okay with it, you know, and they're great. They got to be okay too. It
Yeah.
can't just be me, you know, and I give them a lot of credit, and their mother too. It's funny because, you know, I've been doing this for a while now, but I still feel like I just started.
Wow.
It's so funny. I still feel like I'm new. Um,
Yeah.
and I've been really blessed with a great career and knowing phenomenal people in the business that I've, you know, have alliances with, and I'm making, you know, a great living, but I enjoy the fun more than I do. It's always great to make a great living, but it's, if you do what you love, it's everything, as we've heard. It's a sort of a cliche, do what you love, you know, work, make your job, do what you love. But it's true. You know, I'm a happy person because of it. And my children are happy because it radiates to them. I also lately, I went to boarding school in Atchison, Kansas, a school called Moore Hill Prep School. I went there when I was 13 years old, and I didn't think I was going to stay there, but I loved it. And now I go back and I teach a film class there, called I Direct, which is directing, and I have them write. I have a class of 20 students, and I break them up into to 4 groups, and they all write a script before I get there. And the script has to be between 2 and 8 pages long. And I have them cast it. They can cast anybody in the town. Atchison is a small town. Anybody, teachers, parents, siblings, and they make these little films, and I teach them how to shoot it, edit it. I show them short films, and I do that every year now.
That's amazing.
So,
That's amazing.
which I love. I love teaching.
I love how your story is just so happy, and yet you're so accomplished and so humble. It's just a fantastic combination. I'm really enjoying listening about your path. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Maria.
A lot of screenwriters are actually wondering whether they should concentrate on writing TV or concentrate on writing feature films. Could you please elaborate on pros and cons of making it as a screenwriter in both, like going both ways?
Well, screenwriting right now with the streaming platforms, and you know, there's much more ways to see a movie now, not just in theaters. Obviously, not every theater. There's theaters open in the United States, but not more in Los Angeles or New York. And so the movie business is a different business now. It's a totally different business. Either it's got to be a gigantic movie like Aquaman, you know, or it's got to be a really great independent movie that garnishes a ton of awards at one of the festivals, and it'll get released that way. Or a horror film, you know, that you know, appeals to, look how great Blumhouse has done with their horror films. They've found a niche, they're running with it. And I'm actually, my Teddy Roosevelt movie called Bull Moose, I'm doing that with Sean Reddick and Yvette Yates, with their company, and they produced Get Out, and we were very successful with that. It made like upwards of $400 million. And they made that movie for probably $6 million. So there's a business there, but it's hard to crack it now. They did. They also did Black Klansman, and they're garnished with all the awards and stuff for both those movies. I mean, who thought Get Out would win Best Screenplay Academy Award? No one. No one thought that would happen, and it did. And so there is a business here. I am working with them, which is great. I have that foundation, you know, on my project, my Teddy Roosevelt project, Bull Moose, of their success, and they believe in me as a director, and even more so as a producer as well, bringing elements, you know, that we can make this movie for a price. But it's tough. The feature film is a tough nut to crack, but it's a tough nut to crack right now for me and I think David Protarka that you talk, I think we agree, just because I'd rather be like this, more difficult and more of a, because not everybody's trying it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it gives me the opportunity to get in there and make something important, something I really believe in, and get out there, get it on the screens.
Yeah. So
television is a gold mine. You create a series, it's a hit. And if you're a writer that creates a series and it's a hit, it's literally, they back up the Brinks truck. It's a gold mine. So the agencies also, you need their support. It's so important to have the support of the agencies, because a lot of agents will not support, say, hey, I want to go make a movie now, I'm going to write scripts. No, you're doing just fine in television. We don't want you to go. We want you to continue because it's cash flow for them. It's sure money for them. So you got the agents that will not necessarily get in the way, but look at where you're making money for them and say, hey, are you sure you want to do this movie? You could have a producing, directing job, be executive producer on a TV show, and you're going to make a lot of money. But it's not always about that, Maria, and especially now for me, while I'm getting into this new phase of my life, it's not about that. It's about doing a project that really gets that I can put on the screen, that's going to get people, or even stream. And Netflix has been great. I did Hemlock Grove for them, which was the second series they ever produced. Mm-hmm. And they were learning, as we were, on making long form television. Even the reviewers didn't know how to deal with it. Yeah. We gave Hemlock Grove to reviewers. We gave the pilot, and it didn't get such a good review. But then when they saw all the shows, all 12 episodes of that first season, they go, I wish we would have seen all 12 episodes, because this is long form movie. This is something we don't know. We don't know how to critique this. Wow. And I actually got an apology from a reporter that wrote for the New York Times, who said, I wish I had seen the whole thing. I would have given you a different review. I said, well, give it a different review now and say that.
Right?
It's not too late. Yeah. It's not too late, why don't you say that? Because I think that'd be important. And he never did. I don't want to mention who it was. He never did, but that would have been great, because now look at it. They don't want to look at one episode, because like Hemlock Grove was a binge show. They were all produced. We made them. I stuck with it. I edited them, got them all wrapped up in a tight bow before we even gave it to them to be distributed. And Netflix has learned a lot as well. I mean, they're very smart over there and done very well, but it was learned by trial and error. Yeah. Like we all did.
Yeah. Now the part about pitching, which is so frightening to many writers, but you've been, I'm sure, on both sides of it. So on the side of the producer, when you were working on the TV shows, and how does that work with the screenwriters on pitching? So when they come up with that script and they want to make a TV show, there's a first pitch meeting to it being bought. What's that path?
Well, I've sold some shows that I've been part of as a writing team. Mm-hmm. I've sold them, but never had them made, but I know how the process works. Okay. Basically, you come up with your script idea. Mm-hmm. Not always write a script. A lot of times it's just an idea, especially if you're a known writer. Mm-hmm. But then you have what's called a Bible, which says where the show is going to go. This show is going to, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and eventually this person dies, and then this causes this problem, and this happens at the end of the season. The guy turns into a UFO. It's like you gotta really know what your story and where it's going. And like a lot of shows, even like Lost, maybe seem like, well, they didn't know where is it going. The writers always knew where it was going, and they have meetings with the studio. You meet with a creative or at the studio. You pitch your idea. You sit with it. In my case, I pitched an idea with Mike McGrail, actually, who's written Bull Moose. We pitched an idea to a couple of places, and they said, we want to buy it. And so Mike went back, finished the script he was writing, We all together worked, the producing team that hired me, Mike McGrail, put together a Bible, and then we pitched the Bible to them, and they bought it.
Mm-hmm.
So now you wait for them to green light it. Okay, let's say it gets greenlit. The movie's greenlit. Now you got to find, in my case, when I'm pitching it because I want to direct it.
Mm-hmm.
But for a writing team and producing team that don't have a director task, now we go get a director. Now we have to get our director. So now he's going to give it vision, because the pilot's more like a movie. So, and he's got lot more power, a pilot director, in directing that pilot. It's like, because they want his vision, he's setting the look, he's doing everything. So now you're going to try to get the cameraman you like working with, you know, get him okayed by the studio, you get your production designer also. Those two elements right up front. If you got, for instance, I did Swamp Thing for DC Universe, which eventually went on to CW and can be streamed right now, actually. I'm very proud of it. They're like in the 90 Rotten Tomatoes, I think we're 92 or 94 with the reviews and the audience. And I'm not sure where the audience is at, but it got reviewed very, very well for a show about a guy in a green suit. And it came out and it was an instant hit on CW. So that was good. When it came out in the DC Universe, not a lot of people could find it. So they tried to put it on CW, boom, it hit. And there's rumors that they might bring around a second season. So you design your show with your people you trust, and you interview people because maybe your people you trust aren't available. Get your first AD, you've got your line producer. Like on Swamp Thing, I was asked who I'd like to work with, and Mark Verheiden, who wrote on Hemlock Grove, he and I loved working with Terry Gould on Hemlock, and then I worked with him on another show, Terry Gould, so I knew him very well as a line producer, and it was a great alliance there. Because producing director, a lot of times the line producer, they can butt heads a bit because you're spending the money. Yeah. You're spending his money, you know, that he's got to look out after. So it's better when you know each other, you work together before, because then there's a thing, like, you know, when you sit there and go, I'd really like to get this 300 angels landing on the edge of Las Vegas, giant, 300-foot wall. He goes, can we make it 110 angels? And you got to give that break, because he's sitting there trying to make this happen with the money he doesn't have. So you need that line producer, very important. You go on location, wherever you're at, even if it's not on location, you go and you start to scout, find locations, and you start the process of who's going to be in that pilot. Who's going to be in it, which is important. So you've got names being thrown at you, people you've never heard of that are up and comers. Some people you've heard of so much, you're going, God, people are going to be bored to see that person again, you know? And you cast it. And we, like I did it differently. I put them on tape to get the best performance out of them when they were auditioning, rather than traditionally sitting in a room, a little theater, and they perform a scene for you. Their audition in front of you, in front of the studio head, president, vice president, the guy who created the creative that brought you in, and plus the director and the producer that brought you in. We'll all sit there and stare at that actor trying to do a scene. I didn't want to do it that way. I did it differently. I made a movie of the scene, basically, the sets and props and everything, to really sell the actors I wanted, which worked on a movie, a pilot that I did called K-Ville, which is Katrinaville, which I did about the cops right after Katrina, which eventually got picked up, which was great. Anthony Anderson and Cole Hauser were the stars. And so then you go out to the location and you start building your sets, finding your sets, most of them practical, because you don't know whether you're going to be picked up. So you don't want to tear down a $50,000 set if you can go, that's like a bedroom, a giant bedroom with a hallway and a kitchen, because you don't know if the show's going to get picked up as a series. It may be a pilot, and they look at it and they go, we don't want it. So you try to keep it practical. unless the studio's got a ton of money invested in it, they know it's going to go anyway, no matter what. Or you have an order of 10 or 12 episodes, no matter what, then you can build sets.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go shoot it. You cut it together fast as possible because there's no time. They take it to the and they screen them, and the president of the studio goes, I like that one. I'm going to pick that up. He says that. And luckily I've done 2 and they both got picked up. And so that's sort of a quick, abridged version of how to do it. Obviously, there's a lot involved with casting and all the different departments and designing. For instance, Swamp Thing having to design that expensive suit that Swamp Thing wore. We had 2 of them made, and I don't even want to tell you how much those cost. You have to be ahead of the game to get that made. And then you have visual effects and all that stuff is all part of the pitch.
Yeah.
All part of the pitch. Drawings. I do drawings. In the case of Swamp Thing, I had a figurine of what he was going to look like. I want to be a 3D. I want to be 3D so the head of the president of the studio, Joe Roth, could pick it up and look at it, turn it around and say, hey, I want this for my desk, which he did.
That's awesome. Thank you. That was very detailed and helpful. Could you please share what makes a pitch successful and what makes a TV Bible stand out among all the very many that are submitted to the executives?
It's got to be clear and concise.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be too complicated. It can't be more than I would say each show that you want to produce should be no more than a page long, explaining what the show is about. Half a page is preferred. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people would say differently, but this is my feeling.
Yeah.
And it has to have you have to say, this is going to go 10 episodes, this go 12 episodes. And I think it's almost as good to have every single episode worked out. The best Bibles are the ones that are worked out and have drawings and things to help them get into the mood of what's going to happen, photographs, even actors' faces, like, stick Ryan Gosling if you have to get the point across. It's about getting them to see and visualize what this can do as a series, so it's not a one and done. Because a lot of pilots are great ideas for one episode, but they don't make a good TV series. Mm-hmm. And it happens a lot. Luckily, studios are wary of pitches that don't have a beginning, middle, and end, or where they can go. And so they're wary of that now. And the new breed of development people that come in, the men and women that come in, which are usually, they're brought up from the inside, they're assistants maybe to somebody who did that, and they get bumped up. I've seen it many times. And next thing you know, they're senior VPs at the studio developing projects. They've seen and been through it vicariously through their bosses and seen the process and what works and what doesn't work. And it's taken the best from them. And the best is they want a clear and concise tour through your television series. Even some people go off, they want to know what the second season is going to be. Mm-hmm. So what's the second season? Not in such detail, but just give us an idea what second, third, fourth, and fifth season could be. Mm-hmm. They want to know. They don't want to get us stuck with a show that runs out of gas, and because the idea is no longer valid and all you're doing is doing the same thing every week. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, a lot of procedurals, Grey's Anatomy, it's going to be patient of the week. Mm-hmm. And it was for On House as well. We tried to do it differently, but basically it was patient of the week. Mm-hmm. Which patient doesn't have lupus? That was always, and then you have the subplots and all that, and you can even put that in there. If there's a love story or there's some sort of love triangle or a hatred triangle, they want to know what the drama is between the lines. Also, is very important. So it's not just, this guy walks in, he's a doctor with a cane, he's hooked on Vicodin, so he's a really, he's a real mean guy, and get out of my yard type guy. That's not going to fly. They had to get in. David Shore went in there with and Katie Jacobs, who deserves a lot of credit for that as well. Was one of the producers, and actually she was at the time Paul Attanasio's wife. And Paul Attanasio was attached to the project as well, who'd done a lot of big features. You can look them up. So we were all, and I came in sort of a little late to the game, mid-season. But, my impact was Hugh Laurie got me, and so did Katie Jacobs and David Shore. They got me, although, slightly unconventional way of shooting things. It seemed to be a good fit for that. And also I have sort of a dark sense of humor that really fit. Hugh Laurie liked my ideas a lot. And I also loved his, which you need as an actor. He wants to try something, take a chance. Actors are sensitive, even Hugh Laurie. He says, what I want to do is I want to chop up the Vicodin and I want to snort it through a straw. And I want Wilson to think I'm snorting Coke when he comes in. So that scene, which is an idea Hugh Laurie had, which I go, brilliant, let's shoot it that way. Let's shoot it the regular way. Let's cut that into the episode. I don't even want to ask. We'll cover it in case chopping up a Vicodin and turning it into powder with a razor blade on a jewel box on a CD. They don't buy that. We have the regular one. We just pop it and drink, how you normally take them. So we cut in the chopping up the Vicodin. And I know I'm straying from your question, and my apologies for that.
I love it. Keep it coming.
And so we cut it like that. And of course, the studio person loved it, but they go, oh, can we get this? This is a network show. Can we get this passed? Luckily, we slipped it through and we got it through, and we have that scene. It's in an episode called Autopsy, which I won those awards for that a lot. We won a writer, Larry Kaplow won the Writers Guild Award for that episode. I won my awards for it, one of them. And we got nominated for the Emmy that year, a couple of years. And we got a lot of, like I said, words don't mean anything, and they don't unless you're up for one and win one.
Yeah.
It's my feeling.
Yeah. Could you please elaborate on the process of getting a TV show made from the very initial stage of when the script is brought through all these meetings and notes and yeses and nos and changes to tada, pilot is made?
Yes. Well, you get the request, you get hired, you go your first day. Normally travel. It's hardly ever shoot in Los Angeles anymore. You get the script. You have the first meeting is basically a concept meeting, it's called. What you do is you sit around a table pre-COVID. After that, it all became virtual. And virtual meeting. Then you go around and every head of every department's there, including your writer, and you're there and you go through the script. You go through with the first AD, you go through each page of the script and sort of talk about what the scenes are, and if there's anything that may need to be triggered ahead of time, maybe special effect, maybe a certain location, maybe a stunt sequence, or anything that's complicated comes up first. And so you take that meeting, and usually it can last anywhere from 45 minutes to 4 hours, that first meeting. It depends how complicated the project is. Then after that, you go and you start the casting process. And you have a meeting with your writer. A lot of times your head writer's somewhere else, he's in Los Angeles. And you go through every character and what you're thinking character-wise. Cassie going to throw some ideas. I may have some people that I've worked with in the past that they may not think they can get, but I have a relationship. And we start casting process. Then you get into that van and you go on your scouting. You start scouting locations. You go to all the different locations, you look at them and you look at them. You're going to do this for the next 4 or 5 days. In the meantime, you're dealing with props, any props that have to be built early. anything along those lines that may stick out that you want, that might be take more time before you actually usually get around. And network television is around 8 days. It depends on cable and streaming channels. You could get up to 10 days of prep, even more sometimes. If it's Game of Thrones, which I did not do, that could even be, a couple of weeks of prep before you start shooting. And then you work with costumes.
Mm-hmm.
You meet with hair and makeup. Maybe there's some blood effects, and then you work with practical special effects, which is anything that is practical. Like if you need blood coming out, if you need somebody shoots through a door and you need bullet squibs to blow that door. How many doors do you need? All that stuff. You work with construction. You work with set design as well. You're designing what you're going to do, what you're going to shoot, how you're going to shoot it. And if they need to build a set on stage, they got to get right on that.
Mm-hmm.
They get right on that. Usually there's guidance there because, the stories are talked about in advance and they get heads up on that stuff. So you've got wardrobe, then hair and makeup, special effects, and then you've got visual effects.
Mm-hmm.
Now, visual effects, a lot of times I'll storyboard that. I work with a storyboard artist, and I'll storyboard anything that has to do with any sort of stunt situation or a complex sequence that I really have a specific design in mind and how I'm going to approach the scene, how I want the shots, and it'll even get down to camera. Like, hey, I really want this wide, low angle, so I'll get this thing called, for instance, I'll give an example, a Fraser lens. It's like a prism that goes right on the floor, so I can see feet walking in the foreground. So you talk to camera. So the camera department usually, they're very interested in changing it up. They want to keep the show looking how it normally looks. You don't want to get crazy with it. I say, I'm doing the whole thing handheld. Well, that's not what we do. You got to be considerate of, there's a show, it's doing, especially if it's a hit show. You don't want to fix what ain't broken. And a lot of times, it's very tempting. Hey, I can do this better. I can make it look better. You got to be very careful of that, because the cameraman, your DP, director of photography, is there all the time. He's with that show. He knows the show. He knows what side of the actors are better. He knows what kind of lighting the studio network like.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got an idea, and also he's established himself. He's established a look. So you got to be very, very considerate of that, without saying, no, this is how I have to have it, because you're not making a movie. You're a hired gun on a TV show. You're a guest. And as a producing director, when I hire the directors I work with, I let them know, listen, I want you to bring everything you got to this, but I want you also to be respectful of the team that's here and the team that is going to carry you to the finish line, because you need their support. You're going to need their support, because it's an impossible job, number one, to direct an episode of TV. You need all the help you can get, and don't try to micromanage, because if you do, you're going to just end up tripping up and making enemies in the process. And there's nothing worse than working with a crew that doesn't like you or doesn't believe, that you respect the work they've done in the past. Mm-hmm. It's so important to encourage good work and find the great stuff, watch the shows, know that show better than anybody. Watch every episode you can of that show. Like when I did Lost, I got the job, I was on the plane like 2 days later, and it was I was directing in the middle of the second season. I was on that plane. I was looking at episodes of Lost in my sleep to catch up. So I knew everything, every little nook and cranny of that show. So no one could ask me, it's like 12-member cast, Yeah. And some of them want to know whether you really know their show and know their character.
Yeah.
And that's very important, very, very important to be able to.
It's a lot of homework, watching every show that you direct as a TV director. Wow.
Yeah, Lost I loved, and Carlton Cuse, who's he's been very good to me. I've done Strain with him, and amongst other shows, and I worked with him. Actually, Carlton Cuse was the first person to hire me to direct a television show, which was Nash Bridges. Mm-hmm. I just come off of a $50+ million movie, and I'd never directed TV. So when they handed me 8.5-page days, I'm like, that's impossible. Yeah. I'm used to doing 2 pages a day. They go, don't worry, you can do this. This is what we do. I'm going, I didn't even my low budget films, I couldn't do that. I was really worried, but he really, and then of course I get the script. I do what I do on my movies. I sit there and I start rewriting it to fit what I think, how I'm going to shoot it. And he heard I was doing that beforehand, working on pages and having them printed up. And he comes out and he was such a nice man. He was there. I know you came from features. I know that's what you're used to doing, but this is television. And he sat down and explained it to me. I go, okay, but can you read this, see if this works? He goes, I don't care if I even like it. It's not the way we work here. And so I learned that lesson very quickly, you know, and was pliable. I was pliable. But I realized quickly that directing episodic TV, especially in the late 90s, it's a different world. And I didn't really have, you know, and you know, I tried to go to my dad to talk about it. And my dad's like, you got to figure it out, kid, on yourself, on your own. You got to figure this out. I'm not going to tell you. You're going to fall down. You got to get up, dust yourself off, and keep going. And he looked at me with a big grin on his face. He goes, welcome to showbiz, buddy. So, but I fell right into it and fell into the group and really enjoyed television, enjoyed working with these talented writers and super talented crews that, you know, that I'm going to bring up, you know, when I do my features. I'm bringing people up that I really love, that I think have the chops to do. I see movies sometimes, and I won't mention what they are, but I'm going, how did this guy get this job? This is terrible, you know, or how did script get made? This is terrible compared to the world I'm in of television, where I've had my handful of scripts that didn't make any sense to me. You got to make them work, though. You got to figure out a way, and you know, engage the writer and say, this is it up front, not when you're shooting it. You can't say, well, I don't understand this scene. You better have gotten to understand that scene before you step on that set, because anybody in that crew, including craft service person, smells that you don't think you know what you're doing. You watch, it's like having a dog that suddenly is the sweetest thing on the planet, loves you, licks you, can't wait for you to get home, will turn around and back you in a corner with teeth flared, ready to take you out.
Yeah. Wow. Well, challenging indeed. Rewarding, but challenging indeed.
Yeah.
It's a very tough profession for parents because of the hectic schedules, unpredictable schedules, and it's something that you get so passionate about, you invest so much into, that it's just difficult to balance this love and family. So how do you balance? And you mentioned a lot publicly online that your kids are everything. So how do you find that balance between this everything and this passion?
That's a really good question, Maria. You know, growing up, you know, there was a little bit of resentment, you know, that my father was always gone. And as I got older and I started working in the business, I almost like, you know, and he's passed, but before he passed away, I just really wanted to apologize to him, because I didn't realize the amount of hard work he was doing to put food on the table, and you know, the volatile business. You know, at one point we lived on Ventura Boulevard in a motel, 2 motels, and there's 5 kids and 2 parents. I mean, and then all of a sudden it would go great. You know, we were, you know, living like kings, and he was away a lot because he traveled and to make the shows like I do. I was almost 8 months in South Africa, and my family came out only once to see me, so I turned into virtual dad. And I explained to them, I tried to explain to them, listen, this is what I had growing up. Unfortunately, it's the way it is, and I love you guys, and just know that I'm aware that it's hard to have. And luckily, you know, I unfortunately away so much that my marriage sort of fell apart, which was inevitable, because, you know, it's tough to be married. It's like, you know, somebody going out to sea for 8 months. It's like, how do you do that? But she's amazing. Her name's Laurie Fortier, by the way, my ex-wife. We were married for 17 years. She's an actress. I met her directing. I was directing her. She was a star of a series called Push for ABC. And she stopped working to raise these kids and did an amazing, has done and still is doing an amazing job. But her acting career is back. She's doing a reoccurring right now on Walking Dead. And so I'm really happy that her acting career has started up. I put her on Hemlock Grove as well when I was there. So we all lived in Canada. So that was really nice when we were in Toronto as a family, both of us going off to work and them going to school there in Toronto. It was a perfect, ideal situation. But unfortunately, the kids eventually had their schools that they had to go to, and pulling them out of school and moving them around just wasn't the choice, because that's what we did. And I had to catch up a lot with when I went to boarding school because of my education. I had to catch up because I had moved so many schools. I'm thinking 20, 30 schools before high school, that much moving. And my brothers and I were our best friend. We were all our best friends, so we were able to be together and be our own playmates. We hung out. We shot BB guns and caught rattlesnakes and tarantulas, and we were as cut down mistletoe out of trees to sell on the holiday season to the neighbors. We were little gypsies, But I encourage all that with my kids, but they're understanding, and like I said, people are born in this world as they are who they are, with guidance of family and parents obviously shapes them and gives them their values, which is so important. But you've got to have that kernel of that good person in there. And luckily I'm blessed with two amazing human beings in my life. Yeah. I really am.
Would you want them to continue your path and also work in filmmaking?
I would encourage. I'm not gonna push them towards it. Like with my father, he never really pushed me. I was very interested in it. I think in the beginning I thought I was going to be an actor until I saw Zombie 3, which I starred in. I remember I showed it to my mom. She goes, maybe you should try directing. And so I did, so I put myself in a couple of things here and there for the fun of it. But I would push, going back to your question, I'm not going to ever push them, but I would support them. But also I would let them find their way like my father did with me. So it wasn't like a handout. My dad could have easily have hired me as a production assistant or, got me into the camera department or something like that. But I think that by me doing it myself and following my own route, because it's like a Plinko game, there's one route that's going to get you there, and it's not always the same. You've got to, everybody says, well, you got to do this. You have to write, and then you can be a director. You've got to be a cameraman, then you can be a director. You can be an editor, you can be a director. There's so many different routes to become a director. If I had to give advice on how to become a director, of course I go to where I'm at. I wish I had an iPhone when I was that age to make films. So I wasn't cutting, Super 8 on a little cutting machine and splicing it together, and my little short films that I'd make. I wish I had the iPhone. The iPhone is, in fact, I shoot sequences sometimes, even on house, with the iPhone, because when I have time, I go off, oh, I need a close-up of this scalpel cutting into this person. I would shoot it on an iPhone or something similar, a store-bought camera, SLR, or the Canon D5, or 5D. We shot actually a whole episode of House on a Canon 5D because it was after a building collapse. And Greg Gatinis directed that episode and did a brilliant job. It's a very good friend of he ended up actually coming in. I gave him an episode of House, and he ends up getting the Emmy for directing.
Nice.
I was very happy for him. But of course, it's like, you got it. I wanted that Emmy. I've directed X amount of episodes. You come in one episode, you get that Emmy. And so
it was under your guidance. So
yeah, but I got, maybe that's down the road for me. Maybe it wasn't in the cards. And it's, but I've had my share of, awards and stuff. So I'm not greedy, and it's not about that really for me, unless I'm up for one and win it. then it'll be about that.
Yeah. Deran, This has been fantastic, and you are so honest and so open about all the experiences, and you're just so humble about this path where you're so successful and have won so many awards, and you know it in and out, and you're still talking about it like you're starting, and it's just it's so refreshing to see that in Hollywood. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all this time.
Thank you for giving me the flattering comments, and as well as inviting me onto your program. I've watched your interviews, and they're terrific. They really are good. I wish you the best.
Thank you. I'm honored that you joined us, and I'm flattered that you watched my interview. So thank you. To end this amazing masterclass, whom would you like to nominate? An actor, filmmaker, anybody who can share words of guidance, who has also made it already and would like to help us build a bridge with those who are trying to get where they are?
Well, I would like to nominate Peter Kowalski. Mm-hmm. He was my director of photography on one of them on Swamp Thing, mm-hmm. who is just a fantastic creator, who I'm going to hire as my director of photography on my Teddy Roosevelt project, Bull Moose. And I think he would be a great chat. I think you and him would click really well. I think you would love him.
Awesome.
And the people that are watching this would love him too. He's very knowledgeable. He's been in it forever, and it's just such a humble and nice person. I just love that guy.
Perfect. We like humble and nice people. So thank you very much for this nomination. I look forward to meeting him. And again, thank you for all your time and guidance and amazing advice. And to everybody who has been watching, we're rooting for you, and we hope to see your films on big screens and major streaming platforms very soon. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, Maria, and God bless.